So we're going to start, and we can sit in a cross-legged seat if you like, or you can be on your knees if you prefer. I like to bring something underneath my sit bones. So I've got a blanket. You might like to grab a cushion or a block just to lift your sit bones up a little bit. You might want to stack your feet in front of your pelvis, or you can sit with your legs crossed, or as I said, on your knees is absolutely fine too. We won't be here for too long, just to ground and center ourselves. So letting your eyes softly close whenever you feel ready. And then letting your hands just rest on your knees or gently into your lap. You might feel like you want to move a little bit as you arrive here. So you might want to lift your shoulders up towards your ears and back. Just ease out any tension that you might have crept into your body before you settle yourself. Maybe take a deep breath in, if you can, through your nose. And open your mouth and let out a sigh, letting go of all of the doing. Deep breath in again. And together, a long exhalation. We'll do one more. And breathing in. And breathing out. Really taking your awareness now with this next exhale into the very base of your body. And so feel your sit bones on the ground, feel your legs in contact with the earth. And take this opportunity here to reflect on, acknowledge the land that you're on right now, and that connection with the earth. And perhaps acknowledging in your own way the custodians, traditional owners of the land that you're on. And yin, the concept of yin is very much an earthy concept. And the ideas of yin and yang are always known as relative concepts. So something can never be completely yin or completely yang. They're always in relation to each other. But the earth is generally seen as more yin, a more yin energy or quality than, say, the air or fire or water even, if we think about the elements. And so becoming grounded helps us to access those qualities of yin more easily. Feeling the solidity of the earth underneath us, the solidity of our bodies. So you might even want to put a hand, if it's available to you, onto the earth next to you, so you can actually feel the ground underneath you. And the other hand could rest at the center of your belly, maybe even the center of your chest, if that feels nicer for you. And just take a moment to breathe here, feeling your body on the ground. We spend so much of our lives being busy and doing in action, achieving things. And so much so that we even carry that into our yoga practice. Achieving a shape with our bodies or some spiritual goal, that's more your thing. And so yin really invites us to let that stuff fall away and to come into the qualities of surrender more. it becomes a practice of clearing, of cleansing our bodies and minds as we try to let go, but we see if we can allow the other things to fall away and simply be. So take a moment to notice here how you feel, the quality of your body today and your breath. Whether it feels like there's a sense of holding on, or maybe there's a sense of ease and relaxation. And perhaps letting your intention for the practice today simply be to explore as we move through some kind of detoxing shapes, a bit of a liver sequence today, to explore what this idea of shedding those layers of tension and that sense of doing and action, what that means to you. So that again, it becomes not something we need to achieve, but an exploration in our own body, our own mind. You might like to bring the hand that's on the floor to join the hand that's on your body. Maybe it's both hands on the belly or both hands on the chest. And letting your intention, if there is one that feels resonant for you, just letting that percolate. And at any time, if you don't feel like you have an intention for your practice, again, don't force it. Your intention can be simply to be curious. And then letting your hands drop away from your belly. We'll come into our first yin shape. So I always like, and if you have a blanket, I forgot to say the props that you'll need, but generally having a blanket and some kind of pillow or bolster and maybe a yoga block or something that's shaped like a block can be helpful. Mainly just the blanket and the bolster today though. But I like to actually bring a blanket onto my mat for just a little bit more padding. So you can spread a blanket out onto the mat. We're going to come into a wide-legged child's pose. So taking your knees quite wide, you might want to have an extra cushion or pillows if you have really tight knees that you can pop in between your hips and your heels. So you might do that by bringing a cushion or a bolster between the hips and the heels. If your knees feel healthy, then you can leave that. And just take the knees wide and bring the hips back. And then walking your hands forwards, coming forwards into a wide-legged child's pose. So the chest is going to come down towards the floor. And then you might like to actually just take your arms, stack them on top of each other and rest your head on your hands. Just in this kind of position with the arms so that you're kind of creating a little bit of support for your head, particularly for our first shape. You might find that it feels nice just to have the head a little bit higher. And we want to, in our yin shapes, to feel that stretch in the body, but not to the point where you're forcing it. So remembering the qualities that we are bringing into our yin practice, that we always want to be letting the body settle into the shape with a real softness, that yin quality of softness. But obviously, if there is anywhere in your body that you are holding some tension or injury, instability, then protecting those areas where you need to. So that might mean that you bring extra propping in, or you stay a little higher. But we're looking to stimulate the meridian channels, or those tissues, those connective tissues in the body. And this shape, particularly down the inner thighs and through the upper body. As you find yourself into your shape, you can start to settle into the rhythm of your breath. We don't need to really control the breath too much in our yin practice. We're not looking to create any particular experience with the breath. It's simply noticing the quality and noticing where the breath might feel restricted. And particularly in this shape, you might find that there's space for your belly to soften. Notice if it wasn't. Your belly is one of the areas that we really hold on to tension. We hold on to tightness. Really impact the quality of our breath. So where possible, letting the belly soften and the chest soften. Letting the tops of your shoulders soften. So that the breath can really move into those spaces naturally. And again, if you find that that doesn't feel natural and it feels difficult, not trying to force any particular experience, just noticing the sensation that you do feel right now and allowing it. Stay here for about another minute. So noticing if the sensation starts to intensify. Obviously, if you feel that you need to move or shift, that's absolutely fine. But again, noticing that maybe the habits around that. Seeing if you can maybe just feel the next breath. And stay for the next breath. In each shape, we come into the shape and to our edge in the shape, to that point where we can feel something happening without it being overwhelming. And we soften into that and stay for a while, so that we can really uncover the depth of the experience. To come out, we're going to take the hands forwards and start to use your weight onto your hands, walking them towards you. And then I really like to use hands to bring the knees together. Your knees have been apart for a little while, so you might want to use your hands just to bring your knees together. And then from here, we're going to come straight into the next shape. which is to extend the legs back behind us, which is going to feel quite nice after the knees being bent for a long time. So we're going to come down onto our bellies, and it is nice to keep the blanket over your mat if you like, just as a little bit of extra padding for your belly. And extending your legs back behind you, we're going to come into Sphinx pose. So, and keeping your toes pointing back behind you and resting your pelvis onto the floor. And then you can take your hands out in front of you, pressing gently into your elbows so that the chest lifts, remembering that your elbows can be kind of quite far away from you so that your chest is lower towards the ground. It's going to be less sensation for your lower back. Or if you want to build that edge or go your edge might be a little further away for the sensation, you can lift yourself up a little bit higher. Maybe you bring the hands together in this kind of prayer position in front of you. And then again, softening into the shape as you get there. You might like to keep your head in line with your spine. Or if you like, you could let your head drop down a little bit. If that feels too much for the back of your neck, then keeping the head in line with the spine is probably going to be easier for you. If you find that your neck is really uncomfortable in this shape, this is where a block can be handy. You can bring the block in and actually rest your head on the block. So just options and invitations to take a different version. Watch that you don't collapse into your shoulders. So we do want just this very small amount of engagement in this shape. And again, if you are holding any injuries or sensitivities in your lower back, then just being very mindful of that. This might feel quite nice, but if it feels like it's aggravating anything, then obviously coming down a little bit lower, or you can even engage the muscles of your buttocks a little bit just to support your lower back. You might like to close your eyes. The practice today, we're going to start to explore some of the liver sequence in yin yoga, which the liver meridian runs through, and the gallbladder pair run down the liver runs the insides of the legs. We've just been stimulating that area, and also up through the back of the body. And the gallbladder runs through the outer hip and down the outsides of the legs. So I'm going to be stimulating those meridians, and the liver is very much related to our detoxing function of the body. The liver, this wonderful, wonderful organ that cleans what we put into our bodies and cleans the toxins. In energetic anatomy, that can include the food that we eat, but also the other ways that we bring things into our bodies, our being. Could be the books we're reading, the news we're watching, the people that we're relating with, air quality. And our yoga practice becomes this way that we can really clean our systems. And the breath is super helpful for that. Each breath that comes in, bringing that fresh prana, fresh chi, in with the breath. And each breath out, releasing what we don't need and the waste. You might like to stay here in this Sphinx pose. If you feel like you need to come down, then elbows out to the sides and just maybe resting your head on stacked hands. That's for another minute. And if you want to come up a little bit higher, you might take your hands out to the sides and press into your hands and come up onto straight arms or straightish arms into seal pose. Perhaps intensifying the sensation here in seal. Again, hands might be a little further away from you or a little more towards you. Trying to still find a sense of softness through the shoulders and the face and the front of your chest. And perhaps as the sensation rises, you find that rhythm of breath. And helps to really embody that cycle. Releasing and allowing the next breath to come in. And then from here, we're going to lower all the way down onto the elbows if you are on your hands. We'll all come down onto our bellies. So again, you might bring your hands stacked on top of each other. Rest your head on your hands, and you might like to give your hips a little bit of a wiggle from side to side. Sometimes feels quite nice. It's that little bit of movement. Just noticing here in this quite neutral shape how the body has responded to coming out of the yin pose, the Sphinx pose. And then from here, we're going to bring the hands back underneath the shoulders and press yourself all the way up. And you can stay in all fours if you like. You might feel like you want to do some little hip circles here. Might feel quite nice. It's easing the tension out of the low spine and the pelvis. Perhaps it feels nice to come all the way back towards a child's pose again, just exploring a couple of shapes between sides. And then from there, we're going to come back up to all fours. And you might like to have your blanket for our pigeon pose or sleeping swan pose in yin. And just noting that sleeping swan is an invitation, and if this shape doesn't feel good for you, then we have a variation to come into eye of the needle. So if you're coming into sleeping swan, we're taking the right knee behind the right wrist. The right foot's coming out towards the left side of the mat. It might be tucked in towards your groin, or it can come a little higher if you like. And then keeping lots of weight on your hands, start to take your left leg back behind you. So you can, if you feel like this is pressing on your knee, but not too much, you can take a towel or a blanket underneath that right hip, or even a block. But if it feels like it's too much for your body, then we can take eye of the needle as an option on your back. So right ankle crossed on left thigh, left knee drawing towards you, or even just hugging that right leg in towards you as kind of a reclined version of sleeping swan. If we're over in sleeping swan, then again, we don't want to have too much pressure on the knee. So you want to try and bring the weight back into the hips. And this liver meridian runs up this right outside of the right leg and up through the hips. We're really getting into that space here. So you can stay on your hands or if you feel you can come forwards, then feel free to come down towards your forearms, or even all the way down if that's available to you. Again, coming in with this exploration. So that if you notice that you are striving for a particular shape, and can you come back to that intention of being here for the exploration, being curious about the journey. And as best you can, letting go of those qualities of control and of doing and action. And coming into those more yin qualities of allowing and softening and simply noticing. And knowing that simply by being here and feeling these tissues expanding and allowing your breath to cycle freely in your body, and you're creating this beautiful opportunity for your body to detox and let go. And so if there is any strong emotion or sensation rising, noticing whether you can be with it, whether you can breathe with it. If anything ever feels overwhelming in the body or emotionally, mentally, knowing that you do have the control to move away from that at any time and to take a break. But seeing if you can stay. We'll take 2 more breaths here. And then nice and slowly start to bring yourself up onto your hands. And use your hands to support you. You might like to tuck your back toe under and just shift your weight forwards towards your hands. We're going to transition from here into our shoelace pose, cow face pose. And if you feel like you need to come out of the shape completely and then come back in, then feel free to do that. But if you'd like to transition, we're just going to bring the left leg forwards. And you might like to have either your bolster or a block handy to come down underneath your sit bones as we come down into this shape. We want to try and bring the sit bones onto whatever we're sitting on, so onto the floor, onto your prop, and then the feet on either side. If this shape isn't available for you, then you are very welcome to take the bottom leg and extend it out in front and find a half shoelace pose. And if that's not available to you, then maybe even just bringing your legs into cross-legged position. So either with the sit bones on the floor or onto a block, with both legs crossed or one leg extended, just finding your version. Again, we're getting into, and it's little, you might find it's a little bit higher up. I mean, everyone's bodies are different, but when we're getting into this shape, we're getting more into this outer hip. So that's the intention of the actual shape. And then how you make that shape with your body is really your own journey. Remembering we're not in this to create a particular shape with our body, but to stimulate those tissues and to feel the sensation. If you have any lower back instability, then staying fairly upright is absolutely perfect. And same if there's already a lot of sensation going on in the hips, you can stay upright. But if you would like to come forward, then you might like to walk your hands forward and start to lean forwards a little bit, just creating that little bit of extra pressure. And if you find there's a lot of tension around your hips, you could even roll up a blanket. If there's a lot of compression, maybe even rolling up a blanket and just coming forward over a blanket might be nice. A little bit higher. Notice if there's anywhere in the body that has started to tense up. Often we can find that that's the jaw or the shoulders, or maybe even in the lower belly. Perhaps noticing how that might affect your breath. And seeing if you can find those yin qualities again of softness, even if that means that you need to come out of the shape a little bit. The liver is in Chinese medicine said to be the general of the army, and doing all of that work to keep the body healthy, the qi healthy. And it can often, with its paired organ, the gallbladder, be related to some strong emotions. Anything from mild frustration to full-blown rage. And so just noticing any sensations that might be here for you. And sometimes if our body's not doing exactly what we want it to do, we can turn frustration onto our bodies, onto the shape, onto yoga. Noticing if any of that's happening for you. And we're going to start to slowly come out. So lifting yourself back up and just keeping the legs where they are if you can, taking your left hand to the side. We'll just reach the right hand up and over the top and just let it hang over your head, just taking a side stretch through the right side of the body just for a few breaths. And then coming back to center and taking the left hand up and over. And rather than reaching, just allowing the arm to relax over your head. And then gently releasing, coming all the way back up and releasing that left leg. We're going to stay with the left leg crossed over the right leg and take the foot to the floor this time. And we're going to take a little twist. So again, you might like to take the left leg and extend it out in front if you haven't already. We're going to take the right hand behind you and then either hugging, maybe just hugging that right leg towards you as you twist, letting your right shoulder relax. Your head can either stay in line with your spine or it might gently start to turn over the right shoulder. No forcing. Letting your belly soften as you breathe. Letting your face soften as you breathe. Noticing where you feel sensation in this shape. And then we'll gently unwind, staying a short while in this shape. And then unraveling your legs, use your hands to help you if you need to. And then extend your legs all the way out in front. And just give them a little bit of maybe a roll of the ankles, maybe a little heel toe of your feet. And then we're going to take the legs all the way back behind you again, come onto all fours. And we'll just take a very short child's pose. So bending, sinking your hips back to your heels and then letting your head rest onto your hands. And just noticing here in child's pose how your body feels. Maybe one side, that right side, is feeling a little different to the left. Letting this child's pose be quite a gentle child's pose. Doesn't need to be too wide. Just an opportunity to recenter. And then from here, you can come all the way back up to all fours again. We're going to take all of that little sequence on the other side. So we're going to take the left knee behind the left wrist, bringing your left foot out to the side and right leg back behind you for sleeping swan. So, of course, if this side feels like you need to come onto your back, one hip might be really different to the other. So you might want to take eye of the needle. You might want to prop under your left hip. I forgot to mention, but you might want to put some padding under your right knee, particularly if that feels a little bit sensitive. So taking your time to get into the shape, because we are going to be there for a little while, for a few minutes. So take the time now to find the right shape for you. Noting that we want to feel some sensation. But without that being overwhelming. So noticing what you feel as you let the weight of gravity draw the hips down towards the floor. Perhaps coming onto your forearms if you haven't already, or coming all the way down if that's available to you, letting your head, if you can, rest on something, whether that's stacked hands or onto a block or all the way to the floor. And noticing here if there's any tension in your belly or in your face. Is there tension anywhere in the body that doesn't need to be there? What are you holding on to? What can you safely let go of? With the next breath, really exploring if there's a way that you can soften a little more. Let's just stay for another 3 breaths. And when you're ready in your own time, bringing your hands onto the mat if they're not there already, using your hands to walk yourself back up, and then weight coming forwards and towards the hands and towards that left leg, and then left knee into the center, sliding your right knee behind, if that feels okay. If you feel like you need to come out of the shape completely and come back into to shoelace with the bottom leg extended, then please do that. Listen to your body. Otherwise, you might bring your block down to sit down into cow face pose, shoelace posing in. The sit bones really need to be grounded. So lift yourself up, even if you're on a tower. That's totally okay. You might have 2 cushions on top of each other. Whatever you need. It's not the important part. It doesn't matter so much what this shape looks like, but more about what it feels like in your body. Making sure that there's no injury being created or exacerbated, but that you can feel something through that left hip, particularly. Continuing on this left side to open up through that liver meridian channel. And exploring in your own body if you might like to start to bring that little bit more gravity into the shape as you lean forwards. You might just be millimeter by millimeter. And then a deep breath, and then maybe a little more, and another breath. If there's any sensitivity or injury in your spine and your lower back particularly, then staying upright. What is the quality of sensation that you feel here? Is it stretching? Is there a heat to it? Tingling? A burning or a compression? And so often we leap straight to the story, the analysis about what's happening. What can we do? How can we control? And yin really invites us to take that pause to notice, and to notice the experience exactly as it is. Can you soften? Remembering to keep breathing. And then in your own time, start to walk your hands towards you. And staying with our legs in this shape, take your right hand down to the ground, lift your left arm up and over the top, and let the arm just rest over your head. Let the arm dangle. Again, feeling this softness. And coming back up to center, take your right arm up and over, a little side bend in the other direction. Opening up that right side of the body. And coming all the way back up, we're going to find our twist on the other side. So just releasing the legs enough so that you can take your left foot to the floor on the outside of the right leg. And you might feel like you need to extend that right leg in front of you, otherwise you can keep it tucked in. And take your left hand behind you, just resting it on the floor, a little behind you. You can always take your hand to a block or a cushion if you need a bit more height, hugging your left knee in towards you, and then a gentle twist. So again, it's not like our yang practice where we might really feel like we're lifting up through our spine and really moving and encouraging our body to twist. We're really just softening into it. There's a gentle intention to move in that direction. And perhaps the head starts to gently turn over the left shoulder. But it's more of an allowing of just taking the shape and then of noticing what happens as you breathe. We'll gently come all the way back to center and unwinding your legs in your own time. Use your hands to help you and extend your legs out in front. Should feel quite nice to let those legs extend forwards. Again, you might like to point your toes and stretch out through the feet, maybe a little roll of the feet in one direction and back the other way. And then we're going to come into dragonfly. So it's a wide-legged forward fold. So we're going to take our legs as wide as works for you. And then you might want to, again, bring your folded up blanket underneath your sit bones. So it can be however high you need it to be. If you'd rather sit up onto a block or a bolster, that's also absolutely fine. I sometimes find if I'm sitting with my hips a little bit higher, if you've got hypermobile joints, that can sometimes mean that your legs come more than straight. So you start to move into hyperextension through the legs with the hips a little bit lifted. So if you do have even like an item of clothing or something like a small towel to put underneath your knees, that can sometimes be really helpful. just if you're hypermobile. And then with the little bit of height under the hips, just allows your hips to tilt forwards. So if you don't need it, that's absolutely fine. If you need a whole tower, that's also absolutely fine. And in this shape, you could even have your knees quite bent as well. That's also okay. So just feeling into where you find that stretch on the inside of your thighs. And you can just take the hands onto the floor. You might like to just leave them there, letting your legs soften. Rather than in our young practice, we might be pressing the heels away and really activating. We're just allowing the legs to be heavy on the ground. You can take a couple of breaths here. And then if you feel like you want to start to come forwards, you can start to walk your hands forwards. Absolutely optional to also bring a bolster in if you'd like, and slide the bolster in front of you. And if you can, you might come forwards over a bolster, having it as close in towards you or as far away from you as you need. Or resting on your forearms, or even resting your forearms onto a bolster. So finding an option that works for you. Again, noticing what you feel. Perhaps that intensity along the inner thighs. Noticing your reaction to that. Letting yourself really drop into the stillness here. And start to, in your own time, slowly walk your hands back towards you again. And moving your props out of the way and coming out again with the hands helping you. So you can lift your legs so that you bend your knees, and then use your hands to bring the legs back in towards each other so that we're not using those muscles that we've just stretched. And from there, you might feel like you just want to bring your knees in towards you and hug your knees in towards your chest. Just let your head rest down. Or you can stretch your legs out in front of you and roll the ankles again if you prefer. I'm going to roll down onto our backs. So again, rolling back, using your hands to help you to lower you down, and coming all the way down onto your back. You can bring your knees in towards your chest and give them a nice big squeeze in towards you. You might feel like you want to have a little rock and roll from side to side. Feel really nice after doing all of that work. Getting into the hips, you take hold of your knees and roll your knees slowly around in one direction and then back in the other direction. You might simply feel like keeping your knees to chest and hugging them in is nice. From here, we'll take the feet to the floor and bring the soles of your feet together and take your knees wide. So coming into reclined butterfly shape. If you need to prop underneath your thighs, you can bring cushions or blocks or whatever you have handy underneath your thighs if you need that support. Otherwise, just allowing the knees to fall to the sides. You might like to rest your hands on your belly. And as we just find this final yin shape, we'll explore a little bit of breath. And so for the majority of the practice, we've just been working with the natural breath. No control of the breath, really. We're just going to explore a little bit of lengthening of that exhalation. And if we're thinking of the yin and the yang qualities, the exhalation is more yin than the inhalation. Our inhalation is energizing, a little bit heating. And the exhalation is more calming and grounding and cooling. And particularly if you're doing this class live or if you're doing it in the evening, then really nice to focus on that cooling and grounding, calming energy. So I'm going to guide you for a few rounds and then you can explore this on your own. We're going to start by breathing in for the count of 4 and then breathing out for the count of 6. If you need to change the shape of your legs at any time, that's absolutely fine. You might decide that you need to bring your feet wide and knees knock in towards each other or just extend your legs long. Feel free to move if you need to. And then as we do this practice, you might, as I let you do a few rounds on your own, you might like to extend your exhale even more. So you might inhale for 5 and exhale for even 8 or 10. Letting the exhale always be more than the inhale. And also letting go of the practice completely at any time if you need to. And so we'll take a breath in first. And then let your breath out with a and then inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Continuing on your own. And starting, if you like, to explore that slightly increased count. Always with the exhalation longer than the inhalation, this practice. And the exhale being that real sense of releasing. So that perhaps through those liver shapes that we've made with our bodies, deep stretches through the hips, stimulating that liver meridian channel, any toxins that might have been released can now really help to shift them with that breath out. Releasing, calming, cooling, letting go. And at the end of your next exhalation, you can let the practice go and just breathe in and out normally. And if your knees are still wide in reclined butterfly, then use your hands to bring your knees back together. And you might, again, just like to take your feet to the outside edges of the mat and let your knees knock in towards each other. This shape called crook lying position or constructive rest. It's a real nice release for the pelvis and the hips. Counter pose to butterfly. Or you might feel like you want to bring your knees in towards your chest again, give them a big hug in towards you. And we're preparing now to come into Shavasana, so you can find whatever props you need to support you. So really nice to bring the bolster underneath your knees, your upper thighs, so that your heels are still resting on the floor, but there's this nice support for your legs. Helps to release your lower back and your hips. And if you need something underneath your head, you might want to bring a little folded up blanket or a cushion under your head, particularly if when you lie down, your chin is higher than your nose. So really nice little tip that if you feel like the back of your neck is really tense and tight, bringing a little something under the back of your head can help. Feel free to cover yourself up with blankets, pop an eye pillow on if you have one, create this beautiful nest to rest in. For our Shavasana, we're going to be here for about 10 minutes and I'll guide you through a really short relaxation, and then you can relax in silence. And so as you find yourself in your comfortable position, and letting the body settle on the mat. And closing your eyes if you haven't already, letting your face soften. And as you relax here, you might like to take some more sighing breaths if that helps you. Maybe even opening the mouth wide as you the breath out. That final real releasing. And then letting the breath fall into its natural rhythm. As we come into this ultimate shape of letting go, of surrender, of simply being. Remembering that this too is a practice. And that the act of surrender, of letting go, is not something that we can force or try. It's actually the opposite. So practicing simply just means showing up and allowing. And if you feel like you're still holding on to something, controlling, restless, whether that's in the body or in the mind or both, just letting that be exactly as it is. No judgment or expectation of how things should be. And simply setting the intention to relax as best you can. And again, as best you can without controlling your breath, just become aware of its movement. Noticing where the breath enters and leaves your body. And then visualizing as you breathe in that breath coming in through the top of your head and moving down the center of your spine to the space at the bottom of your belly. And then as you breathe out, retracing the path as the breath moves back up and out and through the top of the head. Breathing in and following as the breath moves in. Awareness draws down to the base of your belly. And then as you breathe out, the awareness follows with the breath all the way up the central channel of the body and out through the top of the head. Continuing with this visualization. And as you do this, you might imagine that the awareness of the breath as they come in and down are washing your body. It's this real cleansing action as you allow the breath to come in and then move out. And just as you might pour water over something that's dirty to rinse it, you might imagine that the breath, your awareness, is doing that in your body. Clearing and cleansing and releasing. If it helps you as you follow the path of the breath in, that visualization, maybe there's a word, something that you would like to invite in with the breath. Perhaps a quality that you want to invite in, or even that idea of cleaning, of cleansing. And then perhaps there's another word as you let the breath out, a little mantra, releasing, or something that you would like to release, let go of. It could be allow presence on the breath in, release tension on the breath out. And you can continue along with that if you like, or just let that go and relax into simply being here for the next few minutes. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And slowly, when you start to feel ready, you can take a deeper breath. Maybe start to wiggle your fingers and your toes a little bit. Gently having a stretch if that feels nice. You're always absolutely welcome to stay lying down and stay for an extra long shavasana if you like, if you have nowhere to go. If you would like to, you can start to roll yourself over onto one side. I'll guide you to close the practice and seat. Using your hands to support you, slowly coming up to sit. And you can close the practice with either your hands over your heart or maybe in Anjali Mudra, bringing the palms together, thumbs at the heart. And keeping your eyes closed down if they are, just to keep your attention turned in, noticing how you feel at the end of the practice. And taking a moment here to perhaps offer up your practice in some way. You might like to offer some positivity to someone who needs it in the world. We'll close together with the sound Om, and you're welcome to listen or to join in. We'll take a deep breath into Om. So bring the thumbs up to the space between your eyebrows, that connection with your own deepest wisdom. And bring your thumbs to your heart for your connection with all those around you. Take a bow forwards, honoring your connection with the earth. And thank you so much for practicing yin with me tonight. If you have any questions at all, and you're here live, drop them into the chat. I'm happy to answer them now, or we can have a chat. Otherwise, feel free